And we are recording today's session just for your information as well. Um, Now, I see the business model issues. There's three or four main issues that firms are coming up against, and some of these things are actually freezing or stymieing them when they come up to them. And so pricing is one. As we become more efficient and we reduce our time, say from on a particular legal job, you might have 10 hours involved normally if you're doing hourly billing and you're billing that. And now if you're only doing 5 hours on a legal case, that you're going to be effectively cutting your revenue in half. So instead of 10 hours, it'll be now 5 hours, and you've effectively lost half your revenue. So it forces you to start really examining alternative pricing and alternative billing, fixed fee billing or value-based pricing in a much more focused way. If you don't, you're going to be losing a lot of money in the process of putting AI in. So this is one of those issues. You've got to figure that out before you implement AI firm-wide. And ideally, you're focusing on maybe one or two workflows first to understand the economics. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through the session. Now, other issues that are coming up include, sorry, just admitting people here, would include also, say, the leverage structure. So as AI is doing what junior lawyers are doing at the moment, so what are they going to do instead of doing that lower level legal work? So firms are really trying to think through, well, how are we going to train junior lawyers to effectively learn the law and be able to succeed us as partners in the end? And some are thinking, well, maybe there's different ways to handle that. You've really got to explore the options there. We're going to be talking about some of those issues as well. And the other thing is partner compensation. And this is a biggie because firms don't change partner compensations overnight, systems overnight. They really need to be looking at how do we reward innovation? And for many firms, they have not addressed this yet. And if you want to get what's in a partner's head and get it into your custom AI system, uh, then you're going to have to give them an incentive to do that. If they're the expert in intellectual property and a particular subset of that, you have to give them some encouragement or appease them that they are going to be compensated in the end, or at least they're not going to be negatively affected by them giving over their expertise to the rest of their partners and the firm, and then find out at the end of the year that we've, oh, fantastic, we've done everything, we're so efficient, we're doing so well. Thank you so much, partners. Oh, and here's what you're going to be paid. And partners look at it and go, well, wait a minute, I helped to create this system. I mean, I took my expertise, put it into the system, and it is now so much better. It is providing so much higher quality product, and the clients are happy. We've got faster turnaround, and yet my compensation, in fact, has gone down relative to other partners because I don't have billable hours. Well, firms have to address that issue, and we'll be talking more about that as we go through the session. So that's just a bit of an overview on some of the major issues that firms are dealing with as they try to implement AI, and we'll be looking forward to your questions and discussing that at the end of the session as much as we can. So I'd like to start out. We're going to have a kind of a question answer format going throughout the session. So I'll be going back and forth to Amy and Kathy and asking them questions about from their perspective, what do they see as the ways that firms should be responding to the issues that I'm talking about here and also implementing AI. So, Kathy, what is the first question that law firm leaders need to ask before we implement a new AI system.
Okay. Well, thank you, Colin, for including me and good to meet everybody. I think a lot of times the real question we're not getting to, and the real question is, are we already exposed because of AI use within our firm? And a lot of people, in fact, we just heard, I was just talking to somebody today, a partner said, we don't use AI. Well, that's a little bit too trusting of a view. I can nearly guarantee that there is some exposure in your law firm. It's just a matter of whether you're seeing the results or not. And in law, I'd like to sort of, I call it the elephant in the room, right? I'm sure you're reading the headlines about in litigation and the sanctions, right? Every day. Last year, there were over 300. We are in on pace in 2026 to meet or exceed that. So lawyers are bringing in fabricated information. And I want to put out there that this is not because they are not knowledgeable or not experienced. There are reasons we'll get to in a little while. But we need to understand, number one, how is AI entering the workflow? And number two, why are these errors continuing? If we see it in the headlines every day, why do we continue to see it? There have to be some reasons. And the first thing I'd like to touch on here is how is AI entering your workforce or your workflow, pardon me, the daily work you do? One of the first things we need to face and figure out is shadow AI. So, an example for that, you have a paralegal and he or she's working under a deadline, needs to summarize 300 pages of medical records before a deposition, just in that preparation. So, they use a personal chat GPT account, perhaps, and they upload portions of the records and doing it in good faith because we all believe and trust that AI does a good job on summarization. That person doesn't realize that there's a context window and not AI isn't seeing the whole 300 pages or the whole 150 pages. So the summary is inaccurate. But because nobody knew AI was entering the system or being used, that error just gets passed down. And through the preparation and into the settlement discussion aspect. And that's when it surfaces. Just an example, that's when it surfaces. And it's not that it was in bad faith. Shadow AI is either someone's using an unapproved tool or they're using an approved tool for an unapproved purpose. And this is something that we really have to ferret out in the firms because the output's great. No errors appear to be there. Um, but it trickles down, right, into the outcomes, into binding documents, binding client deliverables. So that's shadow AI. The second way you may not realize that AI is entering your workflow is what I'll reference as embedded AI. So you have some tools working, and a vendor says this is a great tool, that's a great tool, you've got it integrated, but you might not know what the AI aspect of that tool is really accomplishing. And you need to know how it's handling your data. Maybe it's not that it's being sold to you as some underhanded thing, but you need to know exactly how that embedded AI is working. And then third, I'd like to touch on is approved tools, approved uses, undetected errors. That's what's happening in these court cases, right? People aren't looking at it and going, oh, okay, well, let's see if I can take something false and hopefully nobody will notice. That's not what's going on. It's what we call quiet failure. And we actually have a term to say AI models are designed to fail because they are probabilistic. They will fill the blanks based on probability and hypothetical things. And the last point on that, AI doesn't say to you, gee, Colin, I don't know. Why don't you go use perplexity instead of me? Well, it's always going to turn out something plausible, confident, that sounds authoritative, which turns helps us trust it. And that blind trust is what discourages verification. That's sort of the way it works. And so then it becomes, how do we control all this that's going on in our system?
Hmm. And so, once leadership recognizes that AI is entering the workflow, how do they assign decision making?
That is a big question I'm going to reference as governance. And I want to clarify governance in the way I'm using it is not the compliance frameworks that you hear about, the European Union Act or NIST or the ISO or a lot of things coming out that's not the level of governance at which we're talking. We're going to talk about the governance, the control gates in your workflow that help mitigate risk. So, a definition for that might just be the day-to-day controls and oversight of how you guide AI use responsibly. And again, I already mentioned control gates. So, Colin, your question about decision making really comes to a part of governance that's called authority. And when we hear that, we don't always recognize that in this case, authority is a person. It's always a person to whom that decision making is handed over. Who the authority is really matters. Oh, AI is a technology. So it's really common for us to think, oh, that's IT. Well, IT needs to be involved in data organization, cybersecurity, tool integration, but they don't belong in the daily workflow. They're not the one that should be overseeing John when he creates legal agreements or Ron when he does research. That's not their domain. So the authority should be a domain expert. Maybe somebody else would call it a subject matter expert. It needs to be someone who's competent, experienced, and when they look at output, they don't just see it and say, "Wow, that's so much better than I could ever write, and it happened in 2 minutes." No, we need somebody who can look at it and say, "Wait a minute, something's off here. Something's off in this content." And going back to the litigation example, why are we seeing that grab the headlines over other types of law? There's not a lot of history yet of the errors surfacing in other types of law or in other industries. And that's because the documents, the output that's being brought into the court, who's seeing it? Opposing counsel and judges. Well, guess what? They're domain experts. They look at it and they say, wait a minute, it's not your grammar that's off. It's not the flow of the writing that's off. Something's off about this content. And that's why these cases are rising to the surface and being seen. And then the last comment there, Colin, on decision making. That authority, that person has not just the power to, but the or authority to, but the responsibility to oversee several aspects of their workflow. And that is, and these are the decisions they have to make. What tools can be used? What can those tools do within the process? Who verifies the output? How is the output verified? How is the use of AI documented? And what do we do when we have an error? How do we escalate it? So just to summarize that, it has to be domain experts that are the authority in different aspects of daily work.
Thanks very much, Kathy. I mean, some really important points there from the business model side of the firm. Excuse me. I mean, you mentioned AI as an example, and I mean, if we're not recording what people are doing with shadow AI, we're effectively missing potential revenue. We're missing, it's just like, time recording. If we don't get the time on there, then we're never going to be able to bill it. So that is a real concern, as well as the risk of what they're doing with it, and where you could run it into some real problems. So I'm going to now move on to workflow. And Amy, I have a question for you. So based on what you're seeing, where do AI rollouts usually start to break down inside real firms?
Yeah, thank you, Colin. And Kathy, the way in which this webinar was created and formed was three experts having conversations. So it's just great to have everybody here. And I've just been following the chat as well. So thanks, Ed, for sharing that insights on the Ohio release today. And that's the way in which we're all able to learn and grow and accelerate here. So I just invite all of you to this conversation. And thank you for being here and for Colin as well for hosting. AI adoption, AI rollouts, and AI strategy all fail, have the potential to fail and the potential to be built at stage 0 is how I've identified it. I'm sure you all know that workflows and processes are really critical, and my approach and methodology is 3-part in people, process, and technology. We need each of them, and they all need to work intimately together and in symbiosis. So what I'm seeing, whether it's big or small, no matter the platform, no matter the practice area, it's agnostic, is breakdowns happen when workflows aren't identified. Just in the last 2 weeks, I've had a conversation with a solo practitioner with a team of 1.5, a paralegal and a clerk that comes in and supports, to a completely AI native firm that's custom coded on the weekend, with Claude Code. And regardless, they all need support and are coming with bottlenecks on where the information is in their head and it's not codified in their systems. It's not codified in their processes. And, we all have a spectrum in which it's documented in our own firms and our own businesses. And I myself practice what I preach the same way, I advocate for AI strategy and implementation for my clients. I'm doing the same as well with my practice, and I am building my second brain. And I'm, leading my clients to do the same. So it doesn't discriminate whether you're a big firm or a small firm, solo practitioner or AmLaw 100. Processes are critical. And yes, it's tedious. And I'm working on a couple solutions to solve that and how to extrapolate this from our brains because, from support staff to managing partners, we all have processes that exist in our brains. And so how do we codify them? How do we implement them? How do we do what Kathy's doing as well in terms of, and all of us, we all need to focus on a governance perspective. I see it very much like an iceberg in the Titanic, although I don't come from a fear-based perspective. We have the ability to see under the ocean water right now. We have the ability to look at other industries that have been through this, in the early 2000s, electronic medical records. My brother's a physician, right now, the way in which that was rolled out and the regulatory and the compliance aspects, we're still seeing the ripple effect of the pressure it puts on physicians, on support staff. And there's an opportunity for the legal industry to learn from these and to put people and process at the same weight and degree of and priority of our technologies. I'm sure we've all seen it. There's a shiny new tool. We're all really excited about it. And we say, how can we fit our whole firm? How can we fit everything to fit this new tool? And really just taking a step back, setting that stage 0 up, which is your foundation. You can then have your technology fit your process. It should always be the second afterflow. So.
Amy,
Yeah,
ask you a question.
sure.
It's
tend to.
Tim Mitchell.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy. So, in your experience, when you talk to law firms, do they generally have their business processes documented? Because the workflows are derived from the business processes. And from what I'm seeing in various verticals, that most small to medium-sized businesses don't have their business processes documented. And I think that's really where I won't build an AI system for anybody unless, we go through our, due diligence relative to, documenting current state business processes. What are you seeing in the field?
Absolutely, Tim. It's great to see you here. It's really great to see you. Yeah. So yes, and we serve similar markets. I know we may have big law folks here. We may have consultants that serve the wide spectrum of sizes. My personal and professional experience has been small, mid-sized law. And just a personal example, 2 days ago, I sat down with a family law practitioner for 90 minutes, and I'm creating a solution to expedite this codification process where we have the ability with AI to extrapolate this information much more efficiently because it can be very tedious. And I sat down with him and I said, look, this is tedious, 90 minutes mapping out your entire family practice workflow. But now once he has this information, he's not going to be encountering some of the gaps that I'm seeing on the other end, which is the training side. I was engaged as well for training for, a team of about 30. And, training can only get so far in so much as the AI tool in which I'm teaching paralegals and attorneys how to use it. The AI tool, we hit a roadblock where and the particular tool, they were not able to feed the information into that tool. And so it's so mission critical. It's so mission critical. And I just appreciate, like, I know we have a Q&A at the end, but I appreciate that Tim stepped in and added a question. I think that's fantastic. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any other questions as well. I think it's really critical for all of us to share what we're seeing. Collaboration is critical right now. I know Colin talks about the value of our proprietary work and our processes, both in terms of our own practices and then lawyers that are here as well. And there's a place for that. At the same time, it's moving so rapidly that, I've said it to Kathy, with great power comes great responsibility, like Spider-Man. So sharing that knowledge and wealth, I do believe will have a ripple effect in the legal industry and a community. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Great. Thanks very much, Amy. We're going to kind of move it along a little bit quicker here now, and excellent comments. I would make one comment that when we do figure out AI workflows, we should be looking at the economics. As I mentioned earlier, are we going to do this fixed fee? Are we going to do it value-based pricing, et cetera? Or are we going to even do it hourly? And so that needs to be decided before we go ahead and do this fabulous workflow, get it all going, and then realize, we can't make money at this. Oh my God. So you should have looked at that at the beginning when we're examining that workflow. So that's my comment there. Now, Kathy, just moving over to the AI governance side here, is having an AI policy the same as having governance?
No, absolutely not. And I emphasize we have to have a policy. Less than 40% of law firms do have one. And I worry sometimes that they're templates or they're very cursory policies. But the way I like to look at it, Colin, is the policy is our top level. It's our intent, what we want to occur within our firm as far as the use of AI. The bottom layer is what's going on. Policy, we all know policy can be a document you put in and you pull out once a year and you sign off and say, good, we're good, check mark. But what's the middle layer between policy and workflow? That's what we're really missing. And that is what we've been talking about, and that's governance. And until we get that in place, we are never going to be able to align our policy, our intent with what's actually happening. And Colin and Amy, you both were talking about workflow. We sort of work in a continuum there. The workflow part I see is the steps that we won't get into a lot right now, but they're important. That authority who is deciding in the workflow what goes in, what's allowed to happen, how is it verified, how it's documented. That's something that really needs to be worked out within your workflow in order to have the control gates.
Okay. Okay. Now, in terms of verification, how is that done? I'm just curious.
Mhm.
You talked about authorities and what they're responsible for. So what is the verification that they would actually do?
Verification is crucial. It goes back to, when we're used to looking at things. If you're doing footnotes, etc., legal references, you're going to go back and you're going to look at the source document. But too often we have blind trust in AI's output, like I mentioned earlier. We're used to proofreading. We look for grammar, we look for flow, we look for logic. AI output typically is going to nail all of those. It's going to be plausible, it's going to sound good. And so the old method, quote, of verifying is not sufficient because those aren't the types of errors. So, two things on that. If you don't understand how AI models work, you will not be able to recognize all the types of errors. And we typically point to confidentiality and hallucinations. There's so many more than that. So if you don't know how AI might fail, you don't know how to verify. But right now, if you do nothing else, you put in place to go back and look at source documents, not just for citations and all, but I don't know how much experience you have with AI, but the longer you work with it, the more you realize it is seriously filling in some blanks. So the need to truly go back and verify to source documents is very important.
Mhm. Excellent, excellent. Okay, I'm going to move over to you, Amy, now on the workflow capability side. Where does the real work of AI adoption actually happen inside a firm, and who is doing it?
Yeah, this is excellent. And I think so what's interesting about this topic of people is that even all of us on the call today, there's a disparity in our openness, our curiosity, the full spectrum in how we're approaching AI. And the same in all our firms that I'm speaking with, I've experienced, a partner that is Claude coding on the weekends, to another staff member that says, I thought Claude was our IT person. Right. And so just bringing a degree that's non-judgment, just bringing a degree of compassion and understanding that we're all approaching this from a unique perspective, and that by empowering our people at all levels and training them on the tools, Colin, Kathy, and I, in our separate conversations, we've talked about this is, we're all having these conversations of how the industry is evolving. What is the role of our people? And so even a question like Colin's mentioning now, what would normally be a process or a technology answer can also be a people answer here. So, just getting to the point, we were talking about how roles are evolving in firms, the three of us. And the new topic, the new term for FOMO, I don't know if you guys have seen it on LinkedIn or elsewhere on X, is FOBO, fear of becoming obsolete. And so all of my clients, they value their people, and they have told me in each their individual ways that our people are never going anywhere. Now, whether we'll hire if they so decide to depart or they retire, we won't be replacing their seat. They've said it very clearly to me in different ways. And, my clients are investing in their people, and support staff. I started my career as a paralegal, and support staff do have this fear of becoming obsolete, and at all levels. And when they see that firms are investing in them, in their training, in their resiliency, in this new legal landscape, it's an opportunity for all of us to redefine the way in which roles are executed, which parlays into Kathy's conversations about governance and how we define those. And, what's going to be happening, at least what I see, is it's no longer going to be, what is your specific role in the firm, but what type of tools can you bring, and what type of agents can you manage, and what type of workflows are you able to execute on? And so the three of us have been having this conversation about how that's shifting. So all of that to say is that I think that people have a really strong place here in a firm's resiliency.
I would heartily agree with your comments, Amy. The whole people issue is just so critical. And as firms are everybody's got kind of a different role now with AI. I mean, you've got junior associates and attorneys are going to be doing different things. The senior associates may be verifying what the junior associates are doing by looking at what the AI is doing. The partners are planning out, well, here's how we're going to design our next system for in my particular practice area, or I'm the subject matter expert. So the people are all going, well, hey, what's next for me? I mean, there's real concern out there that I'm going to be replaced. And the answer can't be that. If you've got good people, this is just another add-on to what you're doing in your regular job. You're just now going to be handling some part of the AI. The paralegals may be running the AI systems. The associates and the senior associates might be verifying what AI is doing, as well as doing the actual legal work, applying judgment, etc. And the partners are going to be overseeing the whole operation, and also what's happening with AI governance, etc. We'll have subject matter experts, but the managing partner has to understand this is not something I can pass on to a technology committee and you're going to figure out AI and everything's going to be fine. No, you as the managing partner have to understand what's going on, and if there's issues and if enforcement's needed, that's where the leadership, the managing partner, has to step in and say, this is how we have to operate in this new AI world. Um, okay, so I'm going to move on now to more of the business model issues, kind of revisit that. And Kathy, just one comment here or question. What are managing partners underestimating when they start looking at an AI implementation and they might think to themselves, God, for $20 a month, I get Claude Code. No problem. Are we fooling ourselves? And so from more from the governance side, what are your thoughts? What are managing partners underestimating?
Number one, I would say a couple things. Number one is the urgency. This is, I used to not really be on board when people said this was competitive advantage. I didn't really realize all that it was, like all of us, what it was going to bring to the table. It is not that you're using AI, but you're using governed AI, and that is going to be your competitive advantage. So they're underestimating urgency, I think. Also, that it is a leadership responsibility. This is, as we've already said, it's not IT, it's not down the road. The leadership has to build a culture of AI mentality and integration. And another thing is, it's not an overhead cost. If you look at governance as a maybe we'll handle it someday cost, you could be coming up against not only financial sanctions, and it's not only, it could be not surface until a merger agreement is executed, that error comes up. So those are the three things, Colin. It's leadership, it's not overhead, and it's urgent.
And the other comment I would have there, and I think Amy and I are in agreement with this, is you had mentioned, Amy, 20% of the cost is the subscription, 80% is the training, the implementation, the redesigning the workflows, etc. So don't kid yourself. There are expenses here, but you have to take that all into account when you're thinking about, do we put in XYZ AI system and this, you've got to include that training cost, that workflow design, which we talked about earlier, that's so important, is actual critically important to understand that we have the right workflow and we're not designing on top of ineffective workflows. Okay, so at this point, I wanted to make a couple more comments on uh, the partner compensation issue, which I think is really important because we have to get, again, this information out of partners' heads, and we have to look at our compensation systems in law firms and reward innovation. And for many years, firms have talked about innovation, and often it doesn't happen, especially if you've got in small and mid-sized firms, very much eat what you kill mentality. If I do XYZ, billable hours, and I've reached say 1,500 or 2,000 billable hours, you're a king, you're a queen. Great, fantastic. You're going to get a lot of compensation. Well, those days have changed because with AI, you won't have those billable hours. So there's other firms who look more at as a team. We're going to work together as a team, and we have particular objectives for the firm. We're not operating as how would I say our own little empires. We're starting to work together. And so we have to tie not only the AI implementation plan into the firm's strategic objectives, we've also got to be sorry, one moment. We've also got to be thinking about the culture of our firm and that partners are working together as a team and they are providing that information that's critical for us to design these workflows and to be effective, efficient, and profitable. And that our people are also feeling comfortable with that as well. So it's all coming from the top, leadership, the managing partner, the management committee, whatever, size firm you are, is directing this is how it's going to work for our business model. These are the guardrails we need to have in order to, implement AI. And these are the workflows, how they're going to operate, and here's how our people will operate within that, and taking us towards that goal. And it may be a cultural change to some degree. Firms that have the culture already, and I would call it firms that have, say, an equality kind of a compensation system, they actually have an advantage. If partners are being paid pretty much equally, then we're all going to work together and we're going to feel freer to provide that information. But even firms that are more in the eat what you kill can start to move more towards that middle ground where we're going to allocate maybe some part of the income to innovation, say 10 or 15% of our profits will go towards rewarding partners for providing that expertise and that information. I think it's critical that firms consider this as before they go out and pick the tools and even develop the system. Your partners need to understand how we're going to price our work, how we're going to be compensated, how our people are going to be affected. And this takes more than just a technology committee. This is leadership is involved at the top, and we're getting input from our staff, the paralegals. So it's the whole 360. Everybody's involved with this. And that's the way this is going to happen to really help us to commit and make this a successful AI implementation. Just looking at the time here, we are actually getting fairly close to the point where we can start perhaps to answer some questions. So let's just have a look. Amy or Kathy, do you see any questions in the chat, or do you have any thoughts about questions that we can answer here?
Yeah.
As we're looking through so many good questions, I just wanted to I wanted to tack on one comment to your cultural thing. Reward people who can find gaps, like break the system for AI and make that something so it won't happen again. So I just wanted to tack that on. Amy, I'll look through too, but if you see any to start with.
Yeah, just touching on leadership, every training engagement, really our first half hour, our first hour session starts with leadership, speaking to the investment that they're making in their people and their firm. And so you can look at, just touching on what Colin said, it's not only pricing and profits, which I see Ryan's comment here about the cost. So you have not only the cost of using AI systems, but then the revenue associated with which Colin's referring to, and then the leadership aspect. When leadership is able to tell their teams, tell their companies that they are investing in this and that this is following the company culture, you have higher adoption use. You have more of this collaborative effort that Colin is talking about, which is so critical to coming past some of these barriers to entry, which is gatekeeping of information. And, I just can't speak enough to that, the role of leadership at all levels. So.
I'm just going to invite those who do want to ask a question. You can unmute yourself. And I would warn you, we are recording. But if anybody, I'm kind of looking through the chat here myself. Does anybody have a question?
Yeah, Colin, I have a question and a comment. Yeah, I think, it all starts with education and training. And the reality is people use the term AI the way people started using the term Google back in the day. I was around when Google went public. There was 12 other search engines out there. They just figured out how to monetize it. The same thing's going on right now. AI itself is an 80-year-old technology. It's not, people say AI. What they mean is cloud-served AI capabilities from Anthropic and OpenAI and Google, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can use AI that doesn't involve using these services that are part of the current hype cycle, and also are far more will mitigate the cost issue that you're referring to, Colin. If like what my firm does is we build systems behind the client's firewall that utilizes open weight, an appropriate open weight model for that vertical that contains the appropriate institutional information, for instance, for the law vertical. And what we do is we build agents after we review their business processes and understand their workflows. We do automation based on that and build agents and agentic workflows that connect to a model that the firm owns that runs on dedicated hardware behind their firewall. And what that means is you're not paying any subscription fees to Anthropic or OpenAI or Google. And no less than Jensen Huang, for the last few years, has referred to a term he calls sovereign AI. And what he meant was that in the context of nations, countries owning their data and their infrastructure. What I'm talking about is about the law firm, in this case, owning their AI data and infrastructure. And when you talk about profitability and the partner compensation, the way in the context of a system like that, where the firm, actually owns their AI system, right? Um, when a partner is contributing their institutional knowledge to their LLM, right, that the firm owns, what they're doing, if you think about it, is, and their compensation should be based on this, is they're contributing to the brand, right? And the fellow partners should look at the compensation, not in terms of billable hours, but in terms of, hey, you're giving us your brain. Amy uses the term second brain, right? Um, you're contributing your knowledge, your 25, 30, 40 years of knowledge or whatever you've been a partner to this brain that the firm owns, not Anthropic, not OpenAI. Okay. So if you get down the road and you go to sell your firm, this is, you're selling your brand and your IP is part of the brand, right? And it's owned, right? So
Yeah.
so what you get by taking a different approach to this and building the kinds of systems that I'm working with people on is you have a system that's performant, okay? If you go look at the uptime stats for Anthropic for Claude, they've never achieved 99.99%. Okay, I worked in cloud enterprise companies for 16 years. You had to have in your SLA, you had to have four nines uptime. Four nines is part of the SLA, or you lost customers and people got fired. Anthropic and OpenAI are getting away with this right now. If you're running your law firm and you're using cloud served AI, Claude for legal or whatever, and the system's down for 3 hours, guess what? You're not working. I see this every day. So what I am a proponent of is and also they have all the power to raise their fees, subscription fees anytime they want. I saw some guy thought he was paying $200 a month for an agentic workflow. He's paying 15,000 a month. He found out because of the token, the token usage. So um, what I'm getting at is performance is number one because you're gonna if you don't use these tools, you own the hardware, you own the LLM, you build in redundancy, your system never goes down, you're compliant. Okay, so that compliance is a big issue. Okay, the minute you put any client sensitive data into a prompt and it transits your network and gets onto the public internet, you're out of compliance. And
Yeah. Okay.
it's
Good.
attorney-client privilege issues.
Appreciate
Security.
the comments, Tim. I do want to, we have other questions.
Sorry,
I see
I,
Ed
I
has
just,
a
but
question.
my point was that relative to what you brought up, partners can, get compensated in other ways besides billable hours.
You bet. Thank you. I appreciate, totally agree with you on that, Tim. Okay, Ed, you've got a comment?
Uh, yes. First, thank you and the panel. This is awesome because you guys are actually addressing a lot of things that I've been having conversations with my networking connections on. Um, a little bit of context. Law is a third career for me. After careers in both tech and management. So my perspective's a little bit different. And when I was in law school in my 40s, the I took a course in how to run a law firm, and the person there was didn't give me very satisfactory answers as far as management theory. My question directly is, how will rainmakers buy into the transformation? Rainmakers are notorious for wanting to protect their intellectual domain?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a real good question. And again, and most firm, I mean, once we get everything AI automated and things are rolling along, the role of the rainmaker actually can be elevated even more because we need more of the human touch, someone who is making the relationships, sustaining them. Rainmakers do that, so we'll need even more emphasis on
I
people to do
think
the
the
rainmaking. Yeah.
Colin, that's a different type of human touch.
It is, but it's still a human touch. I
Right.
don't see AI doing the rainmaking, to be honest. It may assist, it may support, but the human touch of being a rainmaker and having client relationships, I mean, that's all human. That's not AI, in my opinion. Yeah. Um, okay. Do we have any other questions? Anybody want to unmute or Amy, Kathy, you have any comments?
I saw some really good questions in there. One was from Ryan that people are blowing through their AI budget, in the first month. And so that's another thing I'd put out to leaders. Stop buying tools. Like you're probably not getting the ROI on a lot of things. Um, like stop, assess before you continue. Some things can be handled by automation. So I hear that from the IT and data people all the time. So Ryan, that may be one way to protect budget. And then one other little thing that came up when I was doing a bar association training, and I feel like it's really important for you to research on your own to all of you out there, is the confidentiality of an AI tool like ChatGPT being considered a third party. So I'm not going to try to use my non-legal expertise that you can figure that out. But I would say go make sure you look into that.
Hmm. Good, good. Any other thoughts? Amy, do you have any thoughts on the chat comments at all? Or
Yeah, and it's great to hear from everybody. We have some real innovators in the room. At the same time, the landscape is moving so fast. And when you tie all of this to your business objectives, which is as we all should be doing, um, it it can be shaky ground and it can feel as though the goalpost is always moving, right? However, at the same time, taking a step forward in the next best direction in terms of strategy, governance, and training your people is the one key takeaway, if I could offer that to anybody today. And to do that, I would recommend picking 3 to 5 workflows, ideally 3. Start with what is the lowest resistance to that particular innovation change management at the nexus point of what is the highest ROI. Because I think that we need to really account for the culture and the level, as I mentioned, the level of curiosity and experimentation that's happening at such wide spectrums. And so therefore, targeting 3 to 5 workflows that have the lowest barrier to entry, lowest barrier to implementation in conjunction with the highest ROI, find that nexus point, and that's where you start and take the next best step and continue to progress and evaluate with the cadence that your firm works at. Because I know we're talking to different, some people have annual reporting and quarterly status check-ins. Some people are working with anything from EOS implementers to, their local business consultant or coach. So whatever cadence fits your current model and your goals, continue to revisit those in that cadence. So if that's one takeaway, I'd like to offer that.
good, good. Ed, did you have another question?
I was just going to add in on the third party item being discussed. Even the state of Ohio has an error in their guidance published. They made the assumption that just because you're using an enterprise model that you have confidentiality. That may not be the case. I have seen enterprise models with terms of service that void your sharing designation if you do some standard cut and paste activities. Those terms of service items are super, super tricky. And my favorite, in talking with some people, is the passage, we reserve the right to change terms of service without notice.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
Scary.
good point. Good point, Ed. We're just 2 minutes away, so we're just going to do a very quick wrap up here. Thank you so much for your questions, and happy to all three of us are available if you want to email us or through LinkedIn. We're happy to chat further about what we've talked today about. Just want to do a really quick wrap up. So we've established AI adoption's not just a technology issue, the tool's not the strategy, and efficiency's not automatically profitable. You really have to price accordingly. The law firm leverage model is changing. Some say it's dead. It depends on your firm, your practice. So you really need to look at that, how people are going to be affected and how we're going to be able to lever to technology instead of to people. Governance is part of the business model. You can't do any of this if you don't have the guardrails, and that allows you to do it profitably and safely and ensure that the client's data is confidential, etc. You need to start small but deliberately, as Amy's talking about, start with one workflow, get that worked out, figure that out. We figure out the economics, and then we expand from there. And finally, the firms that succeed won't be the ones buying the newest tools. They're going to be the firms that connect AI to firm strategy and AI to a strategy that works for partners, it works for staff, it works for associate, it works for all of our people, and it ties in with good governance, good workflows, pricing, partner compensation, and finally, profitability. So thank you very much for being with us today. Really appreciate all your thoughts, and see you next time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You.